once again. Welcome to the Metro Blue Line Extension Corridor Management Committee. I'm Charlie Zolli, Chair, and this September 14th. As we always do, kind of start by introductions of CMC members and their alternates, but I just want to highlight not a new face, but maybe for this table, Leslie Caderas, who's not interim, is, and I won't say permanent, but that's my dream, but the general manager of Metro Transit, which is actually where we are, who's joining us. But why don't we start by going around the table, and since I lean to my left, Riva.
Hi, my name is Riva Chambliss, and I'm Vice Chair of the Metropolitan Council, and I represent District 2.
Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Kinderis. I'm the Metro Transit General Manager.
Good afternoon. I'm April Crockett with the Metro District, Director of Planning, Program Management, and Transit.
Hi, I'm Bill Blonigan, Mayor of Robbinsdale.
Jillian Rosenquist, council member from the City of Golden Valley and alternate.
Hi, I'm Jim Adams. I'm the Mayor of Crystal.
Hello, everyone. XP Lee, council member from Brooklyn Park, also Mayor Pro Tem.
Meg Forney, President of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board.
Carla Arredondo Payan from Blue Line Coalition.
Ricardo Perez, Blue Line Coalition.
Jonathan Hanson, CAC member.
Dan Dorr, Business Advisory Committee.
Dr. Tara Watson, Business Advisory Committee.
Jeff Lanning, Hennepin County Commissioner, District 1.
Irene Fernando, Hennepin County Board Chair.
Well, thank you and welcome, everyone. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items that I always announce. First, this meeting is being streamed and recorded, which means we may be live. You can also review it later. We're being recorded. And all materials are posted on the project website, bluelineext.org. That's bluelineext.org. And for those members of the public that may be watching, just know that your comments are important to us. Please submit them to Nakongo Sigulu until Friday, September 22nd, and his email address is in your materials, and it's on slide 2 in your presentation. Okay, so important day today. We've been meeting nearly every month, looking at various cities, segments, the alignment possibilities, station locations. It's all coming together. So we're going to review the entire corridor-wide project, the details, and look carefully at the staff recommendation. And we will also be able to weigh in on a drafted resolution to advance us into environmental analysis. And I will say this is just continuing the period of exploration. We are not into any kind of hard wiring, but more into opening up and understanding. So we'll continue that today. But first, we've offered folks to, and we're joined by our mayor, Mayor Fry, and Councilmember Ellison. Welcome. We just introduced ourselves, so now I've done that for you. You don't have to worry about it. So we're going to have some members of the public to offer some public testimony, and I have a number of people signing up. We may not have time for everybody, but we've really allowed 15 minutes and really hope to limit comments to 3 minutes. Please feel free to, I should call somebody up. Is there a Wendy Sullivan here? Wendy, join us. We have 3 minutes, and there's going to be a little timer. There's going to be a kind of a beep when you have 30 seconds left, and then the second beep means your time is up. So, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Wendy Sullivan. I am a new emerging developer of color, and I own 2 properties, commercial properties, that are going to be affected by the Blue Line extension, and I'm kind of in that forgotten portion of the plan on Oak Lake between 7th and 3rd that kind of just gets ignored as to what's happening over there, or at least I'm feeling that way from the meeting, so I wanted to take a chance to express myself with it. I also want to say I am completely in favor of the Blue Line extension. I think it's a wonderful addition to our city and for transportation. I think it's great. I grew up in Minnesota in North Minneapolis and riding the bus all over town, and so this is just a step up. My grandpa was on the the electric cars that used to come in that we got rid of on Hiawatha. So I am fully and completely in favor of it. But what I'm concerned about is the fact that my properties are going to be affected with some right-of-ways in that, and I've been working with Met Council, which is great, but also the stops. It was told to me that, oh, it's going to be great. You're going to have like 30,000 people on this blue line coming past your property, and I'm going to do a commercial development that's going to have a restaurant, rooftop, all of this. So I'm very excited about that. But the light rail's going to pass right by it without a stop and too far for the type of, it's a half a mile from the Target Center, which I'm told that's kind of the break off. And so I'm here to say I'm in favor, but I'm also here to say I'd like to advocate for myself to have a stop before it leaves that 10th Street and leaves to go to North Minneapolis, so that I can have the patrons and the people that I'd like to be able to get off the stop and enjoy my development that I'm looking to do. And so I in a last meeting I was in with Met Council, they said that the North Loop residents or community weren't as interested in the stop that was supposed to happen on 10th and Washington. And so again, I'm asking and big strong desire would love if you could move that stop a little bit down Oak Lake and end up where people can get off and enjoy my development. I'd like it to be successful. I think it's going to be a great addition to the city. And I'd be happy to share any plans with any of the members of the committee to look at, but I think it's going to be a great addition to the Minneapolis skyline and all of that. So I'd like some help with that and making sure people can get to it, and that little spot in between there isn't forgotten. So.
Thank you. Yeah. I now call Mike Miller. Welcome.
Hello, my name's Mike. This is my wife, Barb. We're neighbors right here. I'm on 10th and 5th Street, right on the corner. I've hung out on that corner for approximately, 30 to 35 years, I guess. We run a horse-drawn carriage business in downtown Minneapolis. You guys have finally tracked me down and got a hold of me, put the note on the side of my pickup truck and said, call us. Your two staffers that came down have the worst job in the world. They said, the red brick building on the corner of 5th and 10th is scheduled to be demolished. Mine is a block building. It happens to be red, and there's a red brick building kitty corner, so I really thought it was the other folks and not me. But that being what it is, they said, they talked to us when there was 3 routes, one being in North Minneapolis and the other 2 routes going down 10th, and I said, whatever happens, it is what it is. Just make sure you're looking towards the future. I've enjoyed this city my entire life. I was born in North Minneapolis. We run a successful business. We bring lots of people into town doing romantic rides and weddings, and every night, 5th Street and 10th Avenue, you can find us there. But this has got to be for the future, not for the people in this room, but the people that we've never met, we don't know. So when you're doing this, I think it's probably the best thing ever. I'm a light rail advocate. I think it's a wonderful thing. I enjoy it. I use it. And I'm just here to give my support. I'm certainly not going to be in the way of anybody. So that's all I have. And by the way, park board over here, the mayor, all of you guys in the city over here, I've worked in every one of your cities, and I'm on your park board all the time. So, and of course, I'm in your district. This is the best city, and I look at it every night and I'm in awe. And it's just the best city in the world, and it's treated my wife, my family, with extreme kindness over the years. And I know horse-drawn carriages are it's ironic, you're getting something new coming in and probably moving the horse. It's been happening for hundreds of years. So, but I'm just here to say, I wish you guys all the best, and I hope this is just one of the many routes that you'll continue to do and expand this thing. There's a lot of naysayers and a lot of haters out there, but if you keep your vision focused towards the future of people you don't know, I think that's where you have to go, and I hope that you continue to build it out. So that's it. And by the way, the negative press you guys get, everybody has stumblings. we didn't get to the moon on the first shot. So if you had cost overruns, that happens, but you live and you learn and you hopefully get better. So anyways, that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, and it's all about transportation. Now we'll hear from Crystal Porter.
Hello, my name is Crystal Porter. I'm the Executive Director of West Broadway Business and Area Coalition. And I'm here speaking on behalf of our business members on West Broadway Avenue. And I believe that you guys probably have received a letter from us being in more of support of bus rapid transit over light rail on West Broadway Avenue. So WBC and its business members strongly believe that bus rapid transit would be more favorable for West Broadway Avenue. North Minneapolis for North Minneapolis compared to light rail transit. BRT would be more cost effective and efficient. BRT offers great flexibility in terms of route adjustments and expansions. BRT can be modified to adapt in our changing urban landscape. It is crucial that we acknowledge the community's needs and aspirations. BRT aligns well with the already present and existing infrastructure and does not pose the same disruption to local businesses and residents that this LRT is going to cause. The preservation of our culture and to enhance the economic vitality of the Northside businesses is essential, and BRT is more practical and less intrusive. WBC and its over 40 business members all agree that BRT would be more flexible, cost-effective, offers comparable service quality, community-friendly, and has a faster implementation timeline. And we want it to be on the record that we do not support the light rail on West Broadway. We an improved bus system that we've been asking for a very long time in North Minneapolis, and we would support bus rapid transit over light rail transit. I know that you guys, and I've said this before, you guys have spent ample time on an anti-displacement work group. You have a great plan set out for how to not displace these communities. I work with them every single day. I work with these businesses who are struggling from sale to sale. They are not able to just pivot. I don't care if you throw the most money that you can imagine at them. They are going to need, each business is going to need a team of people working with them to allocate land, to acquire land, to redevelop, to be able to get all of those funding pools that you guys have set aside or will plan to set aside, to be able to redevelop and come back to their avenue, and to be able to remarket and get people to come back to them after years of construction. I know that you guys, you're like, look to the future. If you're looking to the future, you're looking to the future for who? Who is going to not make it through this construction? I just drove down University Avenue yesterday. I counted 11 boarded up buildings and over 6 buildings that are looking to lease and rent out. So if it's so great, then why isn't it working where it happened already? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Ron Williams.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Zelli and other committee members. I am Ron Williams from Robbinsdale. People ask, what is the Met Council thinking with this blue line extension? Since the early 1980s, Twin Cities pioneers were thinking about how to better move people throughout the area and to stimulate economic development. Resulting projects were the LRT from downtown Minneapolis to the airport, LRT between St. Paul and Minneapolis, an extension to Eden Prairie. The last project from North Minneapolis and the northwest suburbs designed to maximize ridership as well as maximize community and economic development for this region. It's been a lengthy process to determine the LRT route. A couple of years ago, before the 2010 final alternative analysis study report, I attended community workshops introduced by the County Commissioner Mike Opat. Attendees favored LRT over BRT because LRT would stimulate economic development, but BRT would not. If you go BRT, you're going to have continued underdevelopment. One of the project goals stated in March 2022 after the route modification was advance local and regional equity and work towards reducing regional racial disparities. This is important because there's no way this goal could have been realized with the previous route along the BNSF tracks. Right from the get-go, anti-displacement efforts were promoted as a priority. Hennepin County, the council's partner in this project, initiated a disparity reduction program in 2013. One way the county is making progress with this program is by helping communities thrive along the Blue Line extension by preventing displacement. This is the first transit project recognized by the Federal Transit Administration and embeds anti-displacement work. The Anti-Displacement Project report says that the major success of the Green Line project was the ability of the Central Corridor Funders Collaborative, CCFC, to funnel grants and investments from different foundations and local governments into programs of support for businesses and households. Hennepin County staff has told me that the county is arranging for staff that would assume the function CCFC once had. It will be a new anti-displacement unit, part of which will address Blue Line extension displacement problems. This will be able to rely on Hennepin County ordinances that provide for mandatory relocation assistance and other measures. We decided on this project 10 years ago. What? The line is to go through 4 designated cities that was going to be LRT. Now, what does a project like this, what does it do when you already decided? You can't undecide that. You would think that public officials would understand this, but apparently some still do not. And some say that we shouldn't develop this LRT because we don't have enough people. But reports, experts now are saying that everybody doing work at home is not as efficient and productive. So I think we're going to get more people coming on the LRTs. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more speaker, Melissa Denton. Is Melissa Denton here? How about John Westcott? Come on up, John.
Hello, my name's John Westcott, and I'm a resident of South Minneapolis. First of all, I want to say that I do support the Blue Line extension, and I'm excited for it to finally be built, but I would also like to see it be done correctly. However, with the most recent route alignment through Minneapolis has left me a little frustrated because once again, we aren't putting transit first, we're putting the needs of car drivers ahead of everyone else. I was excited to see a transit mall along 21st Avenue was selected for the alignment, but then massively disappointed when I saw a crossing selected to get over 94 because it's not really a transit mall if there's a freeway off-ramp dumping right into it. This is dangerous and the off-ramp needs to be moved to Broadway only. We have a perfectly good route for cars to take over onto Broadway, and they don't need another route where all the pedestrian and bike traffic is supposed to be. I travel a lot for work, and time again, freeway off-ramps are consistently the most dangerous crossings I encounter as a pedestrian. As cars have just finished doing about 70 miles an hour and have not thought about pedestrians since they got on the highway, let alone a train. There should be a bridge built for the LRT and foot and bike traffic only, and I think that even two bridges, one for bikes and pedestrians directly across 94 and one sloped LRT bridge that goes from 21st Avenue up over top of 94, Broadway and Washington to avoid level crossings at intersections would be far better. More in line with the lowered 94 ramp option, but utilize an elevated LRT track. It would result in fewer collisions between cars, pedestrians, bikes, or trains, and also allow for higher track speeds, faster travel times for all. Trains and cars don't play well together, nor should we be putting them together unnecessarily. In the process of trying to cater to every request out there, the train has ended up being put in places that just aren't logical, which results in a worse experience for everyone. And at some point, we've just got to select a route that is the best that we can logically build. Somehow, a route was chosen for the train without doing any time analysis either, and it's one of the largest contributing factors to ridership, especially if you want everyone to walk, roll, or ride in the future. And when Botno was being considered for the lane reduction, a time analysis for cars was done immediately, and I think we should be also putting the same level of energy into choosing the best route for the train and not just doing what gets the fewest complaints from a couple of local people. At tight corners like Washington and the extended 21st Avenue and level crossings, especially with transit signal priority crossings that results in stopping trains completely, are not a good foundation for a fast or frequent system. And keep in mind that every train might have 50 to 300 people on it compared to the 15 cars that might be stopped every 5 to 10 minutes. And finally, I urge you to avoid using the transit signal priority or the stoplights for trains and instead use the gated crossings wherever possible. TSP is great for buses, but bad for trains. And I would recommend looking at the Martin Luther King Jr. Way in Seattle, and it's one of the most dangerous sections of the Seattle LRT system, and which uses TSP instead of gated crossings. Perhaps a side running alignment down Bottineau where possible would be safer and faster. It seems we've lost our way on building rapid transit, and this is a train, not a tram. It's supposed to be the backbone of our transit system, and spending the additional money now on flyover bridges and gated crossings will likely pay off in the long run, as there will be fewer accidents that the Met Council will have to pay out for, and higher overall ridership. So let's invest in it properly now so we can enjoy the benefits for the next 100 years to come. Thanks.
Thank you. And as you know, as you can tell, we don't have time to hear from everybody who signed up, but please feel free to give your comments to nakongo.sagelo@mettransit.org, which you see on the screen before you. And if you choose, we'll give you first up rights to address the committee next month. Welcome, Commissioner Green, and I'm glad we have room. We have a full complement today. I know that I understand Councilmember Elson has to leave actually in a few moments, and this would be appropriate time, I think, if you would like to address some comments to the committee.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear, but while you're here.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me time to speak, and I feel a little out of turn, not speaking after the updates and everything, but I do have a resident council for an elderly living facility. They're having some issues, so I committed to going and meeting with them, so I gotta go. The mayor will, I think, really accurately describe the city's position, the city's concerns, and where we're hopeful for this project moving forward. But I also, I would be remiss if I didn't just name, I think a lot of the anxieties, and I know I've done this over the years, that folks on the north side are feeling. It is not my experience that most folks on the north side are going to say absolutely no to the train. But as you can see from some of the testimony we've gotten today and some of the discussion that we've had over the last couple of years, folks are really nervous, right? Some folks have gotten to an absolute no. And for the folks that haven't, they want to know what the solution is for them in terms of displacement. They want to know what the recourse is for them in terms of their ability to stay in the community, whether it's as a resident or as a business, because this is our home, right? Northside is where we've made our home. I think that there is a tension that I've heard over the years, or over the last couple of months, especially about how do we enter into MOUs with people? How do we make certain promises to people if we're not on a certain track? And the community says, well, if we're on a certain track, then how do we know that the promises are going to be made, right? And it's this chicken or the egg situation. I anticipate today that we're going to be moving forward on this route, right? And I'm not necessarily against it, but I want to name that we're going to move forward on this route, and that's probably going to affirm some of the distrust that community is looking at this project with, right? And for me, it's really important that somebody mentioned, one of the testifiers mentioned getting this project right. It is worth having this conversation because our area and the north side in particular have the highest ridership in the metro, maybe in the state, right? And that's why the conversation is worthwhile. But if folks aren't going to be around to benefit from the infrastructure, well, then that makes the conversation a lot more complicated. That makes the conversation not worth having. And so I want to just keep emphasizing how important anti-displacement is going to be. I want to keep emphasizing that I'm not here to wag fingers from on far. I'm here to sort of be a partner. And if there are not enough conversations happening on Lindale, if there are not enough conversations happening on 21st, we are going to hear that, and it is going to hold up this project, and it's going to threaten this project. And so I just want to say that I remain cautiously optimistic. Today I want to give my caution. Today I want to talk about why you're hearing from folks on the north side who are nervous about this project, who have a lot of disbelief and a lot of distrust about the project's ability to deliver for them and ensure that they aren't displaced by this. I continue to be encouraged by how much effort we've put into anti-displacement policy, but at some point, we're going to have to figure out how much money is going where, when, and for what end, right? And if we can't answer that question, I think we're going to continue to run into problems on this project. So that's all, and I want to thank you all for your thoughts. I want to thank the community for their thoughts and partnership on this. And I think in terms of specifics, the mayor will be able to get into that and speak on behalf of the city well.
Thank you so much, and thanks for giving us your time, just even this brief time in your comments, and we will certainly continue the process, and I think your words of caution but also your words of partnership are really well received. I appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Then we're getting back to the agenda and looking at approving the meeting summary from August 10th that was sent out in advance for your review. Are there any edits, questions, corrections?
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those minutes are approved. On to our reports from the Community and Business Advisory Committee, and as you see, we have both groups well represented, and I think we have Jonathan Hansen and Dr. Tara Watson and Pastor Dan Dorr. Jonathan, are you going to kick us off?
Yes, we had our CAC meeting last evening. We discussed various things about the project. We saw renderings of stations that we hadn't previously seen, so there was definitely some discussion over that. We also discussed where the location of the station in relationship to park and rides would be, especially in Robbinsdale with the one downtown, and just wanting to make sure that there was a good, as small distance as possible for that, and discussed, possibly the need for a flyover bridge in Robbinsdale. We also discussed various parts, like Councilmember Ellison mentioned the need for anti-displacement, and the discussion of at what point can we reach out to the businesses that would be affected and work with them, if it needs to take to the 30% or what threshold to reach for that. So, but overall, the CAC is happy with the alignment that the staff recommended.
No, thank you. Appreciate the insight and the recommendation.
Thank you.
Dr. Watson, Pastor Tour.
Good afternoon. We also met on Tuesday, and we reviewed the track alignment and noticed that there were some investments around the stations. In particular, we talked about Crystal, and we were seeing some of the visuals about all the equity and improvements that were going to be happening in Crystal around some of the stations and park and rides, and how with this investment there was going to be potentials for growth, development, more foot traffic just centered around the park and ride, and noticed that there isn't a park and ride in Minneapolis or North Minneapolis. And so that was a little disturbing, because there again, that theme of a pass-through. And that trust. Why can't Minneapolis, North Minneapolis, have what every other city is going to have? It not showing up for our city. Like, how do you get someone to believe that you're going to do the right thing when we're not in the conversation in the beginning and we're an afterthought? So some of the things that we discussed was, how can we bench? So some of the things that came up was, okay, there's a public review period, there's a public comment period, and we have to get that on record before September 18th. Or, yep, you can add this in after the SDEIS comment period, but again, there are these dates. We want a placeholder. We want to be in the conversation. We want to be in that budget now and work the details out later, and we just don't think that it's fair to be included potentially later. especially because there's huge investment in the community around park and rides and these stations. And so in that park and ride, because there's such a huge parking issue, this could be potentially a solution to some of that parking. And we discussed some of that, that there could be potentially public parking component, underground parking, some linear buildings. We saw some beautiful renderings of some potential linear buildings around park and rides for, I believe it was the city of Crystal. So why not Minneapolis, North Minneapolis? Trying to see if there was anything else that I missed.
If I could add.
Go ahead.
You know, during that discussion, it was pointed out and clarified that the concept of park and ride is intended or is motivated by commuters driving to that location and taking light rail further on into the city. And that was clear, and that's the philosophy, and that's the understanding. But when it was pointed out, the inequity and the potential growth around the parking in those communities, the outer lying communities, the subject of equity came up. And it made sense, and even the team seemed to agree that maybe this project can be an example of how we're attentive to parking solutions throughout the metro, in that we become a model for others. And maybe in North Minneapolis, the parking isn't just one location like Robbinsdale. But for this project plan to be bold and progressive and reflect the values that we've been talking about.
So in that, how do we become more than just, let's send an email, make this a part of the public comment? We're requiring more than that. We would like something to be done. How can we make this an action item so that this is included in the project? We don't have to have answers now, like what that looks like, but to be included in the budget and to be included in the conversation so that this is carried forward for the potential of a park and ride in Minneapolis, North Minneapolis. I don't know what that looks like, but that is what the request is. Thank you.
Well, thank you for so clearly articulating that perspective and recommendation and request. And I promise on behalf of this committee, we're not going to lose the thought. We have to consider that carefully. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. So, Crystal was mentioned a number of times, and I just thought this would be a nice time to kind of speak to your points. It is about equity, and it goes both ways. I think we have a park and ride in Crystal for one main reason. We have next to no transit service in Crystal. We've been cut on the corridor 81, and we've been cut in our inner cities. So the only way we can access a potential light rail is through a vehicle. So I would like to put on the table as well that the service in Crystal be really considered at this early stage as well. What I've seen is the opposite. It feels very disingenuous at being in this room and having this process when at the same time our service is continuing to get cut. So I would really like that to be highlighted in this process.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions? Dan, Tara, thank you for your report.
Sure. If I can.
Please.
First off, I really, really appreciate what you were stating about parking on the north side and the equity piece. So, the chair has made his promise. I've also received that as a north sider, and I really appreciate that. Given what Mayor Adams said, I can't help but mention Councilmember Rosenquist in Golden Valley did submit a letter. It's in the packet. Not quite the same message, but there's a intersecting message that the transit system works when the system works. And Golden Valley was previously a part of the alignment, and there is a BLRT route that many of us are advocating for to really get at what you're saying, Mayor Adams, that trail connections, service levels, quality of service, that all is interconnected with the full transportation system and certainly this line. So they're not the same points, but I did want to at least highlight the connectivity among these points. Thank you.
And just to jump on, continuing this conversation, but we need to move on to hear from Chris. But, you know, we've met with Maple Grove, we've met with this whole idea that this is a travel shed that's a much broader than just one line. And then in maybe whether that comes in a parallel effort or a connecting effort, we should be talking about it. So appreciate it.
If I may just add super quickly.
Sure.
So yeah, the same idea here with Brooklyn Center, right? Because we know the demographic of there is pretty diverse, and there's a lot of people that are transit riders in Brooklyn Center. So how can we make intentional connections so Brooklyn Center can also access the light train system? So I just wanted to say that out there for Brooklyn Center people. So yeah,
it's on the record.
Cool.
Commissioner, did you have a comment?
Briefly, I think it might be good. I think if we at a future date could have a report on what a system looks like that's connected to a light rail system, because we are so focused on light rail. I think a lot of us have questions about east and west and those connections that we don't see now and we're not studying. So maybe just, I think it would be a great conversation to park in a future meeting to have a presentation on what that might look like, what we're not seeing because it's not there yet.
If we're calling light rail a backbone, it's a backbone to Great. All right, in the interest of kind of advancing, so, go ahead, Mayor.
Just a real quick comment. Botno, Highway 81 has been redesigned for rapid bus transit well over a decade ago. And we're still sitting here with, the opposite happening. Not creating that system, but backing off from that system. And what existed is now gone. So we've made decisions in the past that we're not following through with. And that's very frustrating.
Got it. All right, we're going to hear from Chris Beckwith, kind of a project overview. We're going to get into anti-displacement reports and then really get into the preferred track alignment stations recommendation. But Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. And I appreciate Commissioner Fernando pointing out the Golden Valley letter in the packet. I also wanted to point out the Hitching Company and the West Broadway Business Area Coalition, both who spoke at the beginning, also have letters submitted, as well as the Minneapolis Regional Chamber. We also have in the packet a summary of the quarterly meeting, which is it's legislatively required that we prepare this summary material and provide it to the Corridor Management Committee. So I wanted to note that that was in your packet as well. I've got a few introductory slides here, and then I'll stay up at the table here as my colleagues take us through some additional topics. This is our new leader slide here with the staff recommended alignment shown as a single track alignment on the map with 12 stations at this time, 13.4 miles, connecting communities in the North Metro with fast, frequent, all-day service across the entire Metro system. It's a single seat ride because it is an extension of the existing Blue Ride, would be a single seat ride from anywhere on this map that you see to Minneapolis St. Paul Airport, down other stops downtown in the existing Blue Line and the Mall of America. This project has a focus on building community prosperity through our anti-displacement avoidance efforts and strategies before, during, and after construction. That's important enough that it's a bullet on this leader slide, and you'll see that carry on from here on out. A few things I wanted to point out on the next steps side of the slide here. We are working on post-COVID ridership. That will be ready by early 2024. The Federal Transit Administration looks for us to, we'll be doing a blended route or a blended ridership approach of pre-COVID and post-COVID ridership as required in their modeling. And we're gathering data right now on the post-COVID condition to blend into that. So you'll see that from us hopefully by the beginning of next year. The rest of the items here I'll be covering in other slides, so I'm going to skip ahead here. Engagement metrics, another slide we like to show and update and present here. What I wanted to point out here is just the different ways that we reach out to connect with the community. We might not always get someone in the first postcard mailing we do, so we need to continue to send additional postcards, to do the social media, to do, you've probably heard many of our ads on the radio and television. We keep trying different routes and different avenues to get to people because that's what we ultimately wanted to hear. We want to hear from you whether you support the project or not. We want to get those voices at the table. So we continue to adapt. Here's showing a few of the engagement activities. that we've done between workshops, community and businesses, bike tours, pop-up tabling, and then engagement through partnerships. Here's a nice sampling of some partnership we have with Hennepin County. They provide the Elevate Hennepin, it's one of their business programs. Cultivate Arts, we're on our third round of that, and engaging the community through the arts. We have our community cohorts, which are those community groups that are really invested in the community. They know the context, they have the contacts, and they're helping to get our message out as well on talking to the people and getting their feedback. And then, of course, our anti-displacement work group. As I mentioned, there is a very complete summary of the quarterly engagement meeting in the packet that was conducted August 23rd at the Capri. It was a corridor-wide presentation, and it was followed by Q&A, and all of the Q&A are summarized in the packet and provided for you today. The discussion themes, all of these are really covered in our presentation. We're hearing a lot about traffic and diverting traffic off of 10th Avenue. Safety and crime continues to be a theme that we hear. Of course, anti-displacement, we are hearing about station location and potentially adding additional stations, as you heard in the comments earlier. And then just kind of the route location and design and the process going forward. So all of that's summarized in the packet. We're happy to answer any questions on that as well. Project timeline hasn't changed. We are looking for you to entertain the resolution today that would kind of give us the green light to continue on into the supplemental environmental impact statement process, and that we would initiate that. We've got a draft just about ready to submit to the Federal Transit Administration, an initial draft that would then indicate our staff recommended alignment, track alignment, if you concurred with that. And then the analysis on the route options will continue. We have to get all the way to 30% design. We are nowhere near that, but 30% design so that we can initiate the municipal consent process next year. And that's when we'll get a lot of those questions answered. A lot of questions we're getting that can only be answered through doing design advancement. That'll be followed by final design, the federal funding, hopefully by 2026, and bidding. And then we'll enter into construction after that, hoping for an opening day in 2030. And this is a little bit more detailed of a slide on kind of what we've done this year, our CMC work plan from February through now, going city by city, rolling in the anti-displacement recommendations in that process. And now here we are in September, where we will take it from Brooklyn Park all the way to Minneapolis and remind you what we've talked about, hear any additional feedback, and then we would like to proceed with the supplemental environmental impact statement. This is just showing that there are several reviews of the FTA by the FTA of the document, and then we can initiate municipal consent after the document is published. So that'd be next spring, early summer sometime. I would be happy to take questions now or anytime during the presentation.
All right. Any questions, Mayor?
Estimates as to ridership are coming. Estimates as to the time that it takes to get from one station to the other all along the entire corridor. When is that coming and how are you doing on that?
Mr. Chair and Mayor, that is actually part of the ridership calculation. We are looking at the travel time, and what we will be doing, the team is going to start digging into, now that we would hopefully have a single alignment, we'd be looking at how long does the train dwell at each station? What kind of signal priority might we be able to assume in our model? We've got some initial assumptions, but we're really going to dig into the details of that, and that would be part of that ridership, that modeling. That's a requirement to go into the model. So early next year.
Okay, early next year, meaning April or meaning January and February?
January and February.
Okay.
However, we might have the travel time a little bit sooner than that, because that's something we're going to start on in the next month or two.
Commissioner Forney.
Thank you. I appreciate seeing the schedule. The one thing I don't see anywhere on it is 4F. And when you were planning on that, I'm quite adamant that this needs to be done along with the supplemental DEIS, and that in other words, before the municipal consent. So is that on the schedule?
Mr. Chair and President Forney, we actually were just looking at our website yesterday, and we're going to be updating our website. I can tell you there will be a page dedicated to 4F at this step in the process. It is part of the supplemental draft ES and an environmental process. And we will highlight that and specifically on that webpage.
Thank you.
Definitely tracking
I'd
it.
love to see that on the,
Thanks
on
for
the
the
schedule,
question.
please.
All right, with that, let's move forward with hearing about our anti-displacement efforts and current status. Kathy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Kathy Gold with the Blue Line Extension Project Team. Today on the anti-displacement update, just wanted to provide the timeline that surfaced last month at this meeting. And you'll see the project timeline above, bringing us forward in the next year, in addition to some high-level tasks that we will be entering into to progress the anti-displacement work. Presently, we are looking at a framework development and draft release sometime in the spring of next year with the finalized framework prior to municipal consent. And as we go down the list here, resourcing, I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention that Hennepin County has a job posting out to lead our anti-displacement work. I'm very excited about that. So internally, this person will manage and coordinate and lead this work in Hennepin County and help additionally to the efforts that we're doing here in the project. So that is happening along with making sure that we're budgeting accordingly for things that need to take place within the next year. And I'll get to the intergovernmental strategies in a bit, but wanted to make you aware that the community agencies did meet August 26th, I believe, and we will be again meeting the week of September 25th. We learned about what has been talked about in each one of the organizations since the recommendations report has come out. And we also ended up our conversation in really understanding some direction on how we might proceed with producing policies. And then in that community engagement piece there, we're really looking to get an engagement plan here, framework, alongside of the overall framework to this group for their advancement and collaboration, and then convening the anti-displacement work group sometime in Q3 here, maybe end of October. So some of those high-level kind of topics that we talked about in our meeting with the local agencies was really putting together an intergovernmental relations strategy. So our intergovernmental director, Kareem Murphy, is going to put a list of policies and maybe some strategies that may need some revising within the legislation that we can all kind of look at and togetherly kind of share common interest in adopting from a corridor level, in addition to adapting those however they look within each one of the localities. And then adopting them. So getting that list together, talking through that, that'll be the main content of our September 25th or that week, that meeting. So looking forward to that conversation. In that conversation too, really looking at some no-cost policy identification, connecting with philanthropic organizations, start those conversations, and with our public sector entities. To understand what are the funding possibilities and interest level. So we'll continue those conversations and get those started as we continue this work. It's very important. Also making sure that we are prioritizing the pre-construction policies to preempt harm to our community members is the desire. And I already talked about the last two. So in our recommendations report that Kira developed, we had 5 areas for next steps in progress. And you can see here, as illustrated, 3 out of the 5 are in progress, which is creating a regional group to continue the conversation, corridor-wide implementation of the anti-displacement strategies. We have a check mark number on number 2, just getting together with our local agencies. We still have some work to do to create a dedicated regional anti-displacement fund, but that is an ongoing effort. And then also making sure that we're documenting within our federal processes, aligning the anti-displacement recommendations and work within those areas so that we are held accountable to actually producing results there. Number 5 is that development of the corridor-wide anti-displacement policy agenda, which Kareem is starting to produce as we speak. So those are the slides that I have ready today. I'm hoping that next time that we convene, we can look at some of the policies that we look at from a corridor-wide perspective and work toward implementing those.
Any questions for Kathy? Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank all of the staff from the partner jurisdictions. You all meet all the time about a lot of stuff, and so it sounds like this is an additional meeting, right? So I just want to commend that partnership. And I know all of us locals are in our budget process or beginning our budget process, so we can't speak for the final budget by any means, but to know that at Hennepin County, the fact that we've posted a position within anti-displacement, within disparity reduction, really hopefully is a testament to how Hennepin has trying to receive the call from this group, which is about working with Met Council and coordinating this aspect kind of in parallel and within the project. So I just want to thank everybody for the ways in which you've pushed and the way that you're continuing to push through this. It's a huge deal. This is the first of its kind, at least for us. And the shared legislative agenda sounds really, really interesting. I'll look forward to hearing how that progresses. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chambliss.
Yes, I just wanted to highlight the appreciation for the anti-displacement timeline. And on the bottom, there is community engagement, which has been listed as throughout. It will be very good, I think, for us to have some milestone results and outcomes from that community engagement. And I know that as we move into the next step of the process, we will start to drill down into what the community and its local partners have said in their strategies. And I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more detail and spots on the timeline for what our outcomes are going to be, especially related to what we've heard today in terms of community comments and what is important for them and some of the things that they are hoping don't happen. Those points should be addressed in the timeline so we know, and our strategy, we know exactly how those opportunities and the mitigation for some of the things that they don't want to see are going to be addressed throughout the timeline.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
And sorry, I haven't seen before that Community Prosperity Advisory Committee. Can you share more about that? Is it just like an idea or something? Or could you share? Thank you.
Yeah, it is an idea, Ricardo, and
Okay.
we'll be addressing that when the anti-displacement work group convenes and actually, have the group kind of discuss whatever that advisory group will be called long-term.
Cool, okay. And I just wanted to add, like we do celebrate to see the progress on this work. And we do also believe that it's important to, as much as we can, disaggregating some of the data on community engagement, because we see the amount of interactions that you have, but I think understanding who are we talking to can help guide efforts to direct resources to communities that we haven't heard enough from or anything at all from them, or that they might indicate that they need more engagement with. And then, yeah, like the other notion here is like, I feel like the engagement is very much shaped for the cities, which are a recipient of this information, but how can we be very intentional to talk to the disproportionately impacted communities through the engagement? And this notion that, like we must illustrate in a scenario-like way what's going to happen when construction hits our cities, How much money will a business have access to when? Like for people to have an idea of how are we going to walk from no train to train, any additional information that you can keep adding as we move forward, I think will help build some of that trust that we do here. And in our own coalition, I think Councilmember Eason said cautiously optimistic, So I just wanted to point out about the engagement and how we can learn as we move forward about who we're talking to. So,
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
Just a quick question in terms of, and forgive me, if this is my first time at the meeting, but is there a radius of displacement that the group is looking at and will be considering in terms of, will it just be the, business and residents like adjacent to the line, or are we looking maybe as far as half a mile or mile out for some scenarios that might affect some of those stakeholders as well?
Chair, council member, we have started to talk about that. We don't have anything that we've put together yet. I think we want to look at what the impacts may be. If you looked at previous lines, for walk sheds and all that, it usually is a quarter to a half mile, depending upon what the rail or the station area is. But I think we want to look into that a little bit more to see what that impact of displacement may be in this corridor. It might be different.
Thank you.
Great questions. Thank you. At this point, we'll shift to hear from Dan, the Hennepin County Director of Public Works, Transit, Mobility. This is the heart of our presentation today, to look at our proposed track alignment and the stations in advance of considering the resolution. Dan.
Chair, members, Dan Solar, Director of Transit from Hennepin County, and with my colleague Chris Beckwith, we're very excited today to present what has been the better part certainly of 2023 and even earlier of analyzing and really looking at a preferred route, a preferred track alignment and station configuration for this line that we would then utilize for advancing our supplemental draft environmental impact statement work. And so this is, of course, where we started almost now 2.5 to 3 years ago on the CMC when we decided to make this pivot. We presented and it got adopted by this body our set of design principles. And these principles have guided us and continue to guide us along the way of what is the best route to choose here and where does it make the most sense to not utilize railroad right away and to extend the blue line up into the communities in the northwest area of Hennepin County. So I'm going to walk through starting on the north, I'm going to walk through each of the 4 cities and talk a little bit about some of the basics and benefits and opportunities in each city, talk about the engagement we've done, and then a few of the specifics about the design and the track location and station location that we're recommending. And of course, I'll also be presenting a number of different kind of still undecided variations in a few spots where we're still moving forward and looking at a little bit of work. So we'll start up in Brooklyn Park, and of course, Brooklyn Park is the area of this blue line extension that remains as close to the previous alignment as we had before. Certainly anywhere north of where we switched over to West Broadway stays pretty much the same. And so we've already got a lot of TOD work and station area planning work and West Broadway streetscape work that was done in previous years. That remains, that continues to be part of what we're doing and what we're moving forward. Here's just a few facts. I'm not gonna go through all this, but here's just a few facts about each of the station areas. So, Oak Grove Parkway Station shows 300 residents in Target North Campus, but it also shows 300 acres of undeveloped property that is able to be in the future developed in and around that area, where that 300 residents has the potential to be 3,000 residents, and the same with jobs. At 93rd, a lot of jobs in and around that area, and around 85th, a lot of residents in and around that area. Of course, 85th also serves North Hennepin Community College and other areas along that. We also have a station at Brooklyn Boulevard, many residents there, also major retail destinations in and around there, and Liberian Business Association's incubator, working with the city right there on that stop as well. And then, of course, the fifth and southernmost stop, which really serves, is in Brooklyn Park, but really serves residents from Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, and Crystal, right in and around 63rd. These are the benefits and opportunities that are there. So we've done, over the time, we've done a lot of engagement work in all of the communities, but here's some metrics about our engagement. The top is we spend a lot of the time focusing on what's happening around 63rd and how that's gonna work. And we've also, of course, spent a lot of time on how we're gonna connect the stations and move people around. So that's been a lot of our engagement work in Brooklyn Park. Also just dusting off and reminding folks what we worked on before, what's out there, what we anticipated, and then how we're going to continue to build this as well. So this is the northern part here, which has the far northern part of the alignment. This is along West Broadway, center running LRT in the center of West Broadway. This segment of West Broadway, which is a Hennepin County roadway, is in great need of reconstruction and has been programmed for reconstruction for many years, waiting for this light rail line to get built. Seems like if we would have built it, it almost would need to be reconstructed by the time when we started on this, but we're waiting to finally get there and do this. So the 4 stations along this segment start at Brooklyn Boulevard. That's a heavy bus connection, Starlight Transit Mall, and the retail areas in there. 85th Avenue, of course, is where I mentioned before, North Hennepin Community College, Hennepin County Library, other new housing being built there. 93rd has a couple of hotels in close proximity, Takeda, Olympus, and a lot of other job opportunities there. And then Oak Grove Station being the north end of the alignment, which will have, you'll see some pieces here, we'll have a fairly good size north end park and ride. We'll have the opportunity for adjacent development, and we'll have the operations and maintenance facility north here as well. So this is, again, a reminder that this project had assumed to build on existing City of Brooklyn Park property, a operations and maintenance facility. Here's kind of a rendering and a drawing of where that is. This is on the kind of relocated 101st, right to a new Oak Grove Parkway, which will connect over to West Broadway. Right off the screen to the north is the not very old, fairly new 169, 101st interchange. And so this is really the north end of the project with our building. This design is essentially completed, needs to be dusted off, needs to be put back in and get ready, but we would look to still implement this operations and maintenance facility on the north end of the project. I mentioned the Oak Grove Station park and ride. This, of course, is part of the exhibits that Dr. Watson was referring to as we looked at the BAC. This was a tremendous amount of work that went into this area with the City of Brooklyn Park and their station area planning consultants over a number of years to kind of reorientate the roadways and set a park and ride in place such that we would be able to potentially serve residential properties on either side. So for example, one of the benefits here, you can't see this, but one layer of this park and ride is anticipated to be built underground. And so then the idea is if buildings are built on either side of it, like those black estimated buildings could be, then that parking underground to those buildings would be underneath the buildings, but also be served from the same access points through the park and ride. So a lot of work and planning also went into that. This becomes the north end of the alignment.
Do we have just comment here?
Very fast. You mentioned their station area consultants. Do the stations not have all the same consultants, or did I just mishear?
So we've had, so in round one, there was station area planning that was done for each of the 5 cities. A couple different consultants did some, but there was station area planning for Minneapolis, Golden Valley, Robbinsdale, Crystal, and Brooklyn Park. So Brooklyn Parks mostly stays in place. We did some new station area planning in Crystal and Robbinsdale, and now we want to tackle some station area planning around the Minneapolis stations as well.
Okay, but it's not, they're not different. We don't have, do the cities have the same access to the same consultants or the same
They have
resources?
access to, we've provided access to an opportunity, and then we allow the cities to help work with us to choose the consultants that they want to use and do that work. So that is certainly a possibility in Minneapolis as well.
Got it. I just wanted, just extending from the report from earlier, which I believe a consistent part was if it's available here, it's available there type thing. So keep on, and I just want to reiterate what was shared with us earlier. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, so from Oak Grove Parkway, we go center running, as I said, on West Broadway, and I talked about those various locations along 93rd, 85th, Brooklyn Boulevard, and then we come to where we transition from West Broadway over to Trunk Highway 81. So the concept you see on the screen where we come over County Road 81 is not new. What's new is that we used to go over all of 81 and landed on the BNSF railroad tracks. Now we go over northbound Highway 81, which you see on the screen, and then come down into the middle of County Road 81 with LRT. So this
Councilmember Kasham, you had a quick comment?
Yes, and it's related to the Oak Grove
Oh,
Station, Chair.
okay, just go back for a second.
So those black building structures that you said would have potentially underground parking, if I'm understanding correctly, would those black building structures potentially be businesses or like retail or multi-use? What is the concept of those buildings?
Chair, council member, unknown. That'll depend highly on City of Brooklyn Parks redevelopment efforts and land use planning in and around there. The property up around there is all owned by Target Corp. And so when we've laid this out, we've laid it out to identify a roadway backbone and a light rail track backbone and a location for a park and ride, adjacent to the station, adjacent to the tracks, and adjacent to the roadways in that area. There's additional, how that all lays out and how it gets developed is gonna be highly driven by the planning that takes place between the property owner, in this case Target, and any of their developers and the City of Brooklyn Park. So could it be residential? Sure. Could be, I mean, it's very non-specific because it is very non-specific right now. It could be whatever that decides to be.
Could just, so then, for example, we can then assume that if we don't know what this building will be, that anti-displacement effort can help shape the outcomes, and we can assume that this is an opportunity to generate affordable housing, right, for the folks who might be displaced, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I think being able to add those details to this story is important. So when we're looking at, okay, who's gonna be able to afford to live in this very nice new building, I hope it can be, you know, like intentionally those disproportionately impacted communities, right?
And thank you, Ricardo, Chair Ricardo, that all lays into how the whole land use planning around the entire alignment plays together with the.
It's just not independent stations, this is a whole vision. Councilmember, Commissioner DeLandy, did you have a question?
Just briefly, since I'm the recovering mayor of Brooklyn Park, the idea was very greedy by Brooklyn Park, is that we didn't want to have this big infrastructure with a bunch of green around it that was not tax valued. And so the idea was to push development right up against that parking ramp, which is not tax value, and then bring TAC entities, whether it's residential, affordable housing is always part of the mix, commercial, business right up to it, so you don't have this big infrastructure with nothing around it. So the idea, and very purposefully, was to ring it with things that would bring tax value back to City of Brooklyn Park. I'll apologize to Mayor Pro Tem Lee, but I know that's why they want it shoved right up there. We didn't want a bunch of empty land.
Right. Mayor Adams.
Yeah, I need a point of clarification. As Dr. Watson was talking about park and ride in buildings, is this the one you're referring to?
So yes,
Yeah.
if we need to amend the record, I was referencing this rendering
Okay.
specifically, although there is redevelopment around the park and ride that Crystal is receiving also.
Yeah, we have a parking lot. We don't have a parking.
Okay, excuse me, so
park
then
and ride.
let's
It's
amend
way
the
scaled down.
record then.
I was
It
concerned we hadn't
the
seen
Oak-
something. So.
No, it's the Oak Grove Station, so if we need to amend the record,
Thank
this
you.
is what I was referencing.
And this rendering is a placeholder, as I understand, right?
That's right. I mean,
Right.
this is,
And I just wanted a placeholder for me,
Yeah.
for North
Yeah.
Minneapolis.
Okay, got it. Yeah, Mayor.
Quickly, how many spaces are you placeholding at this station?
I want to say, and somebody will yell if I'm incorrect, but I want to say like 950.
Thank you.
Well, this is as
Big as
as
it
big
gets.
as big a park and ride structure as, I'm not sure, Leslie may know how many might be bigger, but it's pretty good size. And of course, it is the north end, so it's meant to capture, potential riders from all the northern area. Okay, so we're down past West Broadway, now we're on to 81 for the first time. So now we're starting really on to where the alignment is different than previously. And of course, here, we're very close in this piece of Brooklyn Park, we're very close to the original alignment. We are on Highway 81, where we transition there between north of 694 and into 63rd, center running LRT on County Road 81 with a station now at 63rd in the center of County Road 81 rather than on the railroad alignment next to County Road 81. This rendering of the station shows a little bit of how we integrate the existing and in-place parking structure that is at 63rd, kind of the Botno parking structure there at 63rd along 81. In the previous design, we had a Skyway bridge that went over Burlington Northern Railroad tracks and came down onto the station platform. Now, because the station platform is in the center of Highway 81, similarly, we have a Skyway bridge that comes off of that second floor, but now goes over both the BNSF railroad tracks and southbound County Road 81, and then comes down onto the station platform. Of course, there's also a at-grade signalized intersection access for all the quadrants at 63rd and County Road 81 as well at the 63rd station. So that really is Brooklyn Park's area. A lot of the same, a lot of the design already done. Got to go back and refresh different things, but even a lot of the environmental work, the environmental mitigations were identified. Those continue to move forward as part of the project as well.
Could I ask a question there? Because I was looking at the slide where you're bringing up the 2016 environmental impact study. So in the Brooklyn, in this area, you will update the human chapter of the study to reflect today's demographics, right, in those cities, or are you gonna use the one from 2016?
Chair Ricardo, we'll have to update everything, right? All the way from things like where are we now on endangered species, where are we now on demographics, where are we now on stormwater, lots of regulations on stormwater and stormwater treatment have changed over time. So each of those things will have to be updated as part of the draft environmental impact statement as well. Okay, so now we enter into Crystal. So the benefits and opportunities in Crystal are here. There's certainly from the Bass Lake Road Station, quite a few both residential access and jobs access areas there. We hope to provide a safe area and pedestrian pieces along here. We've engaged with a lot of residents and also a lot of businesses in and around the Bass Lake Road intersection. The general alignment through the city of Crystal is center running at grade LRT on County Road 81. And of course, we have there Well, here's a little bit of our metrics on engagement. So we certainly talked a lot about traffic with people, how traffic's impacted, where they can turn, where they can't turn, what's gonna change, what about pedestrian crossings, how will people get to the station here, and such. And so that's a lot of what we heard there. And again, Crystal is intended to be, again, a shift from the BNSF railroad corridor to the east onto the County Road 81 corridor. So in this case, it's primarily center running at grade on County Road 81 with a station at Bass Lake Road. Now, as we've analyzed traffic impacts here, one of the things that we identified was that putting LRT at grade on County Road 81 at Bass Lake Road would result in a negative level of service without improvements to that intersection. And so we looked at taking the existing, which you see on the left, which is an existing 6-lane road with turn lanes, left turn lanes, and right turn lanes at Bass Lake Road. These are both county roads. This is a county road intersection. You can see on the left, that's looking north, and we are recommending a grade-separated interchange replacing at grade. So what does that mean? It means the heaviest traffic volumes at this intersection, north-south traffic on County Road 81, will continue north and south over Bass Lake Road without stopping. Access to and from Bass Lake Road onto 81 will be via a tight diamond intersection configuration with ramps on and off of County Road 81. LRT will remain at grade through this area with a station that is allowed for access by pedestrians and patrons to and from the station without having to cross the higher speed, higher volume Bass Lake Road travel lanes. Now, the county does not have a lot of county road interchanges, and so this is one of the firsts. And you know, if we were just talking about an interchange to solve traffic, this might not be the solution, but an interchange to solve the traffic problems and to provide a pedestrian environment to a light rail station, this rose to, for us, this rose to the top as a recommended alternative. So a couple other things that you'll see a little more detail here. You'll see how kind of the BNSF tracks are off to the left. That's the cell phone tower area right south of Bass Lake Road. Up on the left there, you can see where the ramps come in, and you can see how LRT is at grade in the center and has a center station platform between north and southbound light rail tracks with pedestrian crossings to it. A couple other things we're looking at doing down here is rather than using walls along either side to build up the ramps, we're building the ramps up via piers so you can see through, so we can allow light through, so we can have an open scape down here so you can be able to move pedestrians. This drawing on the right would be like you were in and I'll go back a little bit, the mayor referred to just off the screen to the left, bottom left corner there, we have about 150 space surface park and ride lot proposed. And so this right drawing would be like a sidewalk coming from that parking lot, walking through under the on-ramp, under the 81 lanes and on to the station platform in that area. And then this drawing on the left kind of shows what it looks like from the sidewalk and then where you can see the station platform there. So that's the primary Crystal piece. The other thing I'll mention before we move to Robbinsdale is the other thing that we're making sure we continue to have in Crystal is today there are 3 lanes going south as you come onto Highway 100, and the right through lane drops into an on-ramp onto Highway 100. And so we're introducing that 3rd lane going south again in the new design that then drops directly onto Highway 100. That's been a very beneficial piece, and that's really another traffic improvement that's needed to pull this together. So that represents what we're doing in Crystal.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Thanks. You know, just a couple comments to add on to kind of some of our concerns and whatnot. We already talked about the service in Crystal, so I won't rehash that. 2.5 to 3 years ago, when we started this new process, this new alignment, we talked about trust, and a lot of that stuff came from the old alignment in the pedestrian bridge, which was associated with that. And in this process, as far as trying to regain and be engaged in this process to rebuild that trust, I don't think we've made any progress. If I were to guess, I'd say we've gone the other direction in terms of what's happened with our transit in Crystal. It really feels disingenuous. I think when it comes to light rail, one of the things that's missing on this list is the safety. Not only the safety around the interchange, but the safety on the trains themselves. I've brought that up in other occasions. I talked about how, you know, some people who I'm kind of in touch with, people in recovery, how they go on the trains and there's people, you know, smoking a bubble, packing a joint, fighting, all these different things. These are the reports I'm getting from my clientele about what's happening. And I don't think we've addressed that, specifically what these safety concerns are, whether there's specific behaviors on the train and the safety on the train. So to me, this is something that we're not addressing, not in a clear way. And I think we need to start. I think that's about it. Oh, no, one more thing, traffic problems. When we say there's traffic problems in that corridor, the traffic problems don't exist today as it was designed for bus rapid transit. The only thing missing is the bus rapid transit piece, right? So as we introduce this new type of transit in this space, that's more of where the problem is coming in, trying to get them to interface together. I just want to be clear that there's really not a traffic problem now. Actually, we've got excellent traffic right now, and I don't want to see that go away.
Thank you, Mayor. And regarding safety and what is really the highest priority for Metro Transit at this time, we might have a briefing rather than take this time here to really go into it's a today problem, and we absolutely are leading into that. It is not the main subject for the CMC here, but absolutely in larger context, we could have maybe a briefing because it does affect our planning and our thinking, and we've certainly made a presentation with Chief Morales and Leslie, our general managers here, with the Green Line CMC, so which is closer to opening. But at some point in the future, we should probably spend more time and give you a sense of what the 40-point plan is and kind of where we are on that plan and the actions, steps we're taking. Very important point and not to be lost.
Okay, I move on. So now we move into Robbinsdale. So of course, Robbinsdale, similarly, we are proposing to utilize County Road 81. Again, starting to get less directly parallel to the BNSF tracks, but certainly running along the same north-south alignment. Part of the benefits and opportunities is connecting both to downtown and North Memorial Hospital, Theodore Wirth Regional Park, and the areas along there. Part of our, we certainly have a tremendous, as we get closer in, we get more and more residential service. So around Lowry, 3,700 residents. That's both Minneapolis and Robbinsdale residents. 10-minute walk of downtown Robbinsdale, 2,200 residents. High level of jobs, certainly around downtown Robbinsdale, but also even higher around Lowry, primarily as the largest employer there in Robbinsdale, North Memorial Hospital, has close access to there as well. Also starting to get more and more affordable housing along here. A lot of, if you drive certainly up and down there, certainly a lot of transit users through this area. So our engagement, again, focused on a lot of discussion, both of impacts, safety, pedestrian crossings, noise, issues associated with building light rail on 81. A lot of time spent about location and discussion around stations, park and ride, and impacts to the downtown. And those are certainly focus areas of our engagement in Robbinsdale. So again, through Robbinsdale, the proposal is to have the tracks run in the center of County Road 81 from Highway 100 to Lowry, and have a station in that segment, a station in downtown. We've been looking at, and one of the things that came out of our station area planning work in Robbinsdale was a real comprehensive look at where and how big and what a park and ride might look like. The recommendation that we're moving forward with today is that we would develop a joint development level site at the US Bank. What you see there is the US Bank site, which is in the northwest quadrant of 40th Street and County Road 81. That's a lot, mostly consists of parking on that site. The drive-throughs for the bank are up in the upper right corner, and then the bank building, which consists of both a branch and offices for US Bank, is on that site. With our visits with US Bank, their consideration is they want to see a branch continue on this site, and then they are open to kind of combining a park and ride and maybe other development as well. So this becomes a real potential redevelopment site in terms of how do we put together in an end condition, a park and ride, a bank branch, and other transit-oriented development that, again, unknown, could be housing, could be commercial, could be a mix of those on here. And it would be paired with a station right there at 40th. The other piece that's becomes part of this is currently the bus operations in Robbinsdale are at the Hubbard Building. And so the Hubbard Building could become available for future development as well, because we would look to merge the bus connections and the park and ride locations and a light rail access on this particular piece. And so all of that comes together. Here's a little bit of a rendering of what this might look like. This is looking north. You can see light rail tracks in the middle, and that's the current US Bank building there on the left. Now, this recommendation today, I'm going to be sure that I mention this recommendation today recommends a alignment for light rail in the center of 81, but we are also still discussing with the city the possibility of this being at grade or possibly elevated through portions of this segment of 81 as well. And that elevated could begin at 40th, it could go through 41st and 42nd at grade or elevated. That'll be part of our ongoing work as we move towards municipal consent to nail down what the station track configuration through here would be. Now, right on the border, we come to, you see North Memorial Hospital campus. Right on the border is where we have anticipated to build a Lowry station. And so the idea for the tracks through here is that they will continue from the center of 81 in Robbinsdale to the center of West Broadway in Minneapolis. And of course, right in the middle of that oval is where Hennepin County, Minneapolis Park Board, City of Robbinsdale, City of Minneapolis just recently completed the construction of the Hennepin County, or the new roadway bridges that go over that area. And so we had been advancing what you see as kind of the lighter dotted line on that curve through there, which we were gonna bring the tracks up, and they were gonna be elevated around the park areas there, and then have an elevated station up in the air that would have vertical circulation connection down around Oakdale, which would serve North Memorial Hospital, and then the line would come back down at grade on 81. We've been in the public with that for quite a while. I can say I didn't feel a lot of love at the Minneapolis Park Board with that alignment, President Forney. We certainly saw some eyebrows raised at the Minneapolis Council meeting about that. We've talked to folks. And I also just want to say that because of that station up in the air, and maybe not only because of that station up in the air, the city of Minneapolis in this case is talking about, well, maybe that's not the best way to serve Minneapolis residents, and maybe we ought to have a station at 29th. So I'm going to summarize all that with saying this is another one of our spots where the track route that we're exploring will be to go from West Broadway to County Road 81 through here. And there will be a station in here, but will it be in the air? Will it be at grade? How will it interact with the park? This is a big 4F piece, as President Forney knows. This is a big 4F piece. There's all the green there is between Theodore Wirth and Victory Memorial. And, but I'll also admit there was a lot of work done on the West Broadway bridges to kind of put that area in order down there. So we want to come up with the best solution to serve the hospital, to serve Minneapolis and Robbinsdale residents, to serve the grand rounds and the park use, and to provide something that, I'll say, contextually fits in to the neighborhood and works through here. So we're at the drawing board here. This is the way, this is the route, this is the proposal, but this will be a lot of work through the environmental process, including 4F impacts of each alternative, what makes sense, and where we'll go. So this is a big piece. This is kind of right now between Minneapolis, Robbinsdale, because it's right on the border. That's where this is presentation.
Commissioner Forney.
Thank you. Feeling the love, right? Being that once you get into Minneapolis, there is no park and ride that's allowed. Is this an area that has been considered for park and ride?
Well, we talked a little bit. There is, I will say, the hospital has expressed the fact that they do probably have more parking than they need even today.
Okay.
Is there a possibility? Of course, it would take some finagling to make it, park and rides need to be free, and so to make some of the parking, not part of their system. That was a little bit of discussion. We have not looked to buy property at this point in and around here as a potential place for a park and ride. If you remember, we did, in the previous design, have we were gonna purchase a piece of property from the park board to have a fairly small lot right there at Golden Valley Road and
Okay. Worth Parkway.
Theodore Wirth.
Okay.
I'm
not advocating or not, whatever, I just wondered if it was any consideration.
Not at this time, yet.
Councilmember.
Chair, thank you so much. I just thought I'd pop in here, and I appreciate that Commissioner Fernando already brought it up, the Golden Valley's letter. We really anticipate that most of Golden Valley residents, particularly those in the Northeast who've really worked for over a decade to kind of vision and bring Blue Line and transit to the Northwest Metro as a whole, will connect up. So I urge you to kind of look at that letter, because we're really interested in talking about, we know there's folks who are going to drive to stations, but we really believe that with improvements in bike and pedestrian connections and to this Grand Round system and the Three Rivers investments that are happening just south of here in Sahaki Park, and them completing their trail, their Three Rivers Park Trail that will go along Golden Valley Road and really lead into the Grand Round system. This is now our opportunity to think systemically and holistically about how we take those numbers that were here just a few slides before and really enhance and increase those with smart investments and connections that bring in folks who are not directly on the line, but through these improvements can utilize this public transit service. So, thank you very much. Three Rivers is putting millions of dollars and a lot of investments into Sahaki Park through the joint powers agreement that we have with the city of Robbinsdale and Three Rivers to make that a place where there's going to be more programming, more amenities, more infrastructure. And so having a great connection to light rail is is an opportunity to add access to nature and other kind of great amenities that we can enjoy regionally. And then, of course, there's the Worth Trailhead that draws, thousands of people to races and all kinds of things like that. So if this kind of station is smartly thought of, instead of using shuttles just at the Humane Society or different kinds of businesses, if you have a shuttle connection where teams of cyclists, teams of skiers, those kinds of people can easily get down to the trailhead through there, if it's built well with that in mind, we're going to be taking cars off the street. We're going to be dealing with congestion issues, all of the things that we want to do with public transit investment. Thank you.
Great point, thank you.
Okay, so we come to Minneapolis, and I know, Chair, I want to.
Our time is fleeting, so we're gonna have to keep marching
I want to
on.
give time for our consideration of the resolution. So, a few of the benefits and opportunities. One of the things we've identified is, we're going to be recommending that through a section of this alignment in Minneapolis that we utilize 21st Avenue rather than West Broadway from James through and over I-94 to Washington Avenue for LRT tracks rather than West Broadway. We know it minimizes business and property impacts, creates this new opportunity for a connection across I-94, and allows us to maximize the benefits of an improvement along West Broadway, maximizing investment along there. So here's some things about, obviously you can see high level from Penn Avenue, 5,900, 5,000, 3,900. There's a lot of residents that live in and around here. There's certainly, especially as you get closer to I-94, a lot of jobs within here and a lot of access to transit. This is currently a very highly transit utilized segment of the city of Minneapolis. Also, why east of 94? We've gone away from recommending Lyndale. We're talking about now coming down Washington Avenue and being east of 94. What does that mean? We think it allows it to complement C-Line and D-Line, which run north and south through the communities on the west side of I-94, creates a new connection across 94, and we'll look at that. We think that helps that. It gets us even a little bit closer to North Loop, which, as we've talked to North Loop residents, they see the Target Field Station as theirs, but this starts to be part of an opportunity there as well. Many residences and lots of jobs in and around this area as well. We've had a lot of engagement, and of course, we've talked a lot about impacts and crime and business impacts and anti-displacement and the things Councilmember Ellison brought up about, what I use all the time is nervousness about, well, what will this mean? What will it mean? Certainly, as we say, we've heard people that say yes, we've heard people that say no, and we've heard a lot of people say, I just don't know where to be on this yet. So that's a lot of what we've done in engagement. Here's a little bit of our engagement. We've really, since we've focused on the east side of 94, we've ramped up a lot of work that we've done on the east side of 94. We had our first quarterly meeting. We held that at the Capri on the north side. We, of course, continue to meet, and we continue to have regular events all the time in Minneapolis. So what it summarizes is here is what we are recommending as our preferred route in Minneapolis, and it breaks down into these 5 areas, and we'll talk about each of these 5, but essentially West Broadway down to James, tracks on 21st from James area over to Washington Avenue with improvements on West Broadway, along Washington Avenue to 10th Avenue, 10th Avenue to Oak Lane to 7th Street and to Target Field. So the Penn Station is one where we're proposing to have a station there. We'd have center running LRT. And yes, we will certainly allude to the fact that both with the proposal for Neon to work with the food incubator and LRT, parking is an issue around the Penn Station, and it's one that we will have to address in detail as we move forward. Of course, it connects to the C-Line in here, as well as the Capri and other destinations along the Penn Avenue area. This shows a little bit of a rendering of what the West Broadway and, not or, but West Broadway and 21st area looks like. So our proposal is to have a station on that diagonal in and around James. We see that as a significant station to serve North Commons Park and the Davis Center and businesses and residential areas on that side of the north side. We look then to continue the tracks along 21st behind the public school headquarters at the Davis Center along 21st with a station at Lindale right by Sanctuary Church, right there before you get to Lindale Avenue, a station on 21st. And then you'll also see down below the blue represents what we hope to do along West Broadway. Included as part of the project is to reconstruct West Broadway as a street, to utilize this for parking and other modal access along here, but not have tracks here and not to have additional right-of-way acquisition along West Broadway. We continue along past Lindale. We are proposing to continue on 21st behind Kemp's and then build a bridge over I-94 that will be for light rail trains to connect from west of 94 to Washington Avenue, but also to look to connect and provide connections for bicycles, pedestrians, and maybe vehicular traffic as well. And so, just hoping to fill that gap that is there from I-94 and to provide another crossing. Here's another potential rendering of what this could look like. You heard today kind of speaking about this being a ramp area, and we've researched a number of ways to separate the ramp from the crossing here, and we can continue to look at that, but we definitely want to get a bridge that comes across here to provide another connection. Also then to potentially reduce impacts that are currently and maybe move opportunities that are on West Broadway, or the current West Broadway crossing elsewhere. So then we make a turn and we propose to come down Washington Avenue. Our proposal would be to come down Washington Avenue and have a station on Plymouth, or right about Plymouth, just south of Plymouth, between Plymouth and 10th Avenue, and then to turn and come down 10th Avenue through this area. Now, here comes the third of the three spots where we are also leaving an opportunity for the dotted line here to be a alternative if we cannot find a way to address the concerns and make the traffic work adequately on the 10th Avenue piece between that dotted line and Washington. And if you remember, we talked about the dotted line before. It's the one that kind of goes under the viaducts and then kind of goes behind the Twin Cities International School along the ramps and along the freeway ramps, and then would come out at grade at 17th Avenue there. So that is not preferred, but it's an option if we can't get this situation to work. And of course, what we're talking about here is the segment of 10th Avenue between the 3rd Street viaducts and Washington Avenue is a narrow section that currently contains two-way traffic, parking, and bike lanes. And without acquiring right-of-way in there, we would like to propose light rail on there, meaning something has to be relocated. We've got an option that removes through traffic from there, leaves a two-way bike lane on one side and two-way LRT traffic on the other side, and we relocate the traffic elsewhere. We also have an option to work to the fire station in Minneapolis. We talked about the fire station at length, Mayor, and in the past, the fire station prefers to utilize the bicycle lane for their access through here. Most of their on-call runs run towards Washington Avenue from the station, so they would utilize the bike lane, or they would utilize on our other option, which would be to leave one-way northbound traffic here. Fire vehicles would utilize the one-way northbound through here as well. So each of these, either a transit mall with just bikes, or a one-way northbound. Each one has their own traffic impacts. Here's a sample of, this is just a sample of the kind of things we're gonna have to dig deep into about where does traffic get relocated to, where does it go, and how do we serve both traffic that wants to use 10th Avenue through here to get through, and how do we want to serve direct driveway access here. I just want to go back really quick because I skipped it. This is a rendering of what a station platform would look like. This looks south on Washington Avenue. If we had a center platform just beyond Plymouth, you can see 10th Avenue in the distance. This is kind of on the north end of the North Loop as well. This is a center platform there on Washington Avenue through here. From there, we make the turn. You can see the blue there. We would make the turn, come down 7th Street and up to Target Field Station. So that is really then the alignment with our recommended route. And you can see there are still some, shifts in a little bit of where the traffic or stations would go, but we consider them minor shifts from the overall impact of, a whole nother street or, alternatives. At this point, we really want to nail it down to a specific route through here. This is the route. What we presented then for this committee today is we presented a resolution that would acknowledge this route and acknowledge it as what we are recommending to move through the supplemental draft environmental impact statement. It recommends then that we continue to advance design. It commits to working with stakeholders on mitigation measures, which will be part of that environmental study. Again, even on this resolution, we have added that again, the Corridor Management Committee is asking us to continue our efforts around community prosperity, anti-displacement, and those benefits, and continue to advance this work.
Dan, thank you. That was a lot. And of course, it both brought us deeper and summarized what we've been looking at over a number of months. Just to review where we are, there's an environmental review that really begins in the federal process of the FTA as early as October. And where we are now is, and it sounds like with this proposed resolution, it provides enough flexibility that in these station areas, particularly as you described, and even some of these routing areas, that this is a recommended route, but even within that recommendation, there's some continuing work that we will be exploring. And part of that is to measure impacts, to identify mitigation strategies, and all that is part of the SDEIS. Can't believe that flows off my tongue so easily, but that's just part of the process where we are now. So we have a resolution. We have
Move approval?
we have some time for discussion. Is there a second? Okay, and the time for discussion and a conversation, because I think important that we kind of move forward. There's a number of ways we could do that, but I really appreciate all the work that you've done as a staff. Commissioner Forney.
Thank you. Once again, I'm very concerned that 4F is not included in this, so I would really like to amend the resolution to include 4F along with the supplemental draft environmental impact. I mean, we've got two more slides that it's not on there. And that is our point of intersection with all of this and how critical it is. And once again, I want to make sure that it is before the municipal consent. So if we could possibly amend that, I would really
I think we can
appreciate it.
accept that as a friendly amendment. I'll look at the movers and seconders that will put some language, not to be wordsmithing now,
Yeah.
to the,
If I could just speak.
Yeah.
I know we're short on time already, but I'm resoundingly in support of continuing the process. And I want to commend staff for writing this in a way that both narrows scope, but also creates space for inclusions so that people can feel confident as we proceed with this next stage. And just, I know we're always in this like kind of doing mode, but just to state for residents listening, et cetera, transit investment is necessary for climate action. Transit investment is necessary for people to connect to resources. I use transit regularly and have my whole life, yes, even in Los Angeles County. People need to get to work, people need to get to their doctor's appointments, and I know that gets lost here sometimes. People who don't have time to advocate here need to get to their stuff and visit their families. And our young people need to feel like they can age in our community. And climate is such a terrifying concept, as we all know. So I just want to express my resounding support for this. I do think this is written in a way to have appropriate inclusion so people can feel strong, but want to commend all of the staffs, at Council Hennepin, but all the partner jurisdictions. I see a lot of corridor staff in the audience. I know that you all are meeting way more than we're meeting in this group, and just want to thank everybody for their work. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to circle back to what Mr. Perez had mentioned previously. Brooklyn Park is definitely excited for this project. The Oak Grove Parkway has been in a lot of conversation for a long time, and we would definitely welcome any conversations with residents or other cities in terms of what that might look like. Right now it's working with Target Field, and we have a great big vision for it being a hub for the Northwest. We definitely support this and look forward to it. I will also emphasize the east-west connections. We've talked about that for a long time as well, possibly along 85th Avenue, but definitely for 63rd Avenue to be able to help serve the residents of Brooklyn Center as well. And this is just a really great project that a lot of people are excited for. I know there are concerns, but I think through conversation that's upcoming, we will be able to address those for Brooklyn Park residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep my comments brief as I can, given the time constraints, but I did want to point out several crucial issues that we want to make sure we are to address before and if we are to grant municipal consent at the city. I do appreciate the recap from the project office. I also wanted to acknowledge that you have been responsive to several of the requests that we've made to explore some of the alignment alternatives, stop placements, and some of the previous amendments that you've made in terms of anti-displacement. I endorse everything that Councilmember Ellison said previously. There won't be any daylight between the two of us with regard to the importance of this anti-displacement work. It is going to be critical for us ultimately to say yes. And at the same time, there are lingering doubts and unanswered questions, recognizing that the alignment, the proposal thus far, along with the stops, is intentionally broad. We're going to need to get some promises and guarantees before we ultimately grant any municipal consent, and if we do. Specifically, the decision to place LRT on 21st Avenue North, Washington Avenue, as well as 10th through North Loop is still incredibly fresh. So these renderings were just introduced in July, a couple months ago, and a lot more people need to be involved in this process. Beyond building managers, beyond the people that are able to regularly attend these meetings. This is still relatively fresh even for me, and we in my office are incessantly involved. Again, the more that we can do outreach to the people that can't traditionally get here, the better. I know the project office has heard quite a bit of feedback from the city and the residents, but there's a few concerns that I just wanted to make sure we got on the record here. One, we're particularly interested with exploring, as you mentioned, the 29th Avenue North option, as well as the Washington Avenue near I-94 crossing. Those two are going to be really important for us to really dig into the details on them. And also finding ways to get that stop that is presently near North Memorial at grade is something that we're looking at as well. So again, 29th Avenue, as well as some form of stop likely on Washington near that I-94 crossing. I'll probably highlight something that Commissioner Forney would have, which is the importance of having some of these improvements go all the way from the border of Minneapolis to the river. This is something that has long been in that West Broadway plan and something that we can't ignore. And then we need to be listening carefully to some of the community, the whole community in North Minneapolis, and those that want to stay during and after construction and also be kept whole. And those who prefer to leave should be fairly compensated. That's another important component that we're going to have to make sure we get prior to the consent itself. And then finally, we understand that the total inclusion of the West Broadway improvement is not presently in this resolution. I know at this point we're looking at more of a broad framework, but I cannot stress how important it is ultimately to have that piece in place, again, city boundary to the river. In conclusion here, to get to municipal consent, we'll need solutions for each of these points. I will support the resolution today, given its broad wording, but we'll certainly be listening closely over this next year to see how we can ultimately get to some of the solutions and answers to the questions presented. And I do appreciate all the work. These projects are extensive, and I know how hard you all have been working. We wanted to make sure we put our concerns on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your expression of support and very clear, succinct issues to be resolved as part of this process. We have a full minute, Bill, which is all yours.
Well, Robbinsdale is supportive as a community, I believe. There's a very big contingent of people that are vocally against this. People that ran on having an LRT won in our last election. We are, speaking of fresh things, today is the first time I heard that 29th Avenue, our big brother, might replace the North Memorial Station. That could definitely be a no-go for us. Last week, we heard that that the North Memorial Station, speaking of fresh ideas, could come down to ground level. We're willing to explore that. That could be good for Robbinsdale and Minneapolis. We are vociferously for having a flyover, like the other cities all have a flyover somewhere, and the area of the 40th Avenue Station in Robbinsdale that goes over 41st Avenue in Robbinsdale, that goes over County Road 9, which is the same as 42nd Avenue in Robbinsdale, thus connecting the city better than what it is right now. So that's my 1 minute and 24 seconds. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, and well taken. We have our work cut out for us. This is by no means fully resolved, but it's great to get some of these issues with some clarity on the table. Are we ready to take a vote? All right. Is it her or Jer?
Sure.
Jer. Will you call the roll? We've had a motion and a second.
Councilmember Chambliss?
Aye.
Commissioner Lundy?
Aye.
Commissioner Fernando?
Aye.
Commissioner Green?
Aye.
Mayor Frey?
Aye.
Mayor Blonigan?
Aye.
Mayor Adams?
Nay.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
President Fortney?
Aye is amended. Thank you.
Carla Orlando Payne?
Aye.
Is Bridget Reeve here?
She is not.
She's not. April Puckett? Aye. Jonathan Hanson?
Aye.
And Pastor Dan Dewar.
Aye.
And Mr. Chair, we have 13.
And I'll vote aye.
Oh, yes,
That
I'm sorry.
That resolution carried, and thank you all for engaging. The environmental report will be on the website, and we'll make sure you'll see that and hear more about that later. October 12th is the next scheduled meeting, but it very well might be canceled. If we don't feel it's necessary, we'll certainly stay in touch. Really important conversation, really important points being made. Thank you all for your active engagement, and as they say, as I always say, stay tuned. This meeting's adjourned.
Yeah.